Welcome into the Gaming Discourse. I'm Tyler Frater alongside Richard Day the Cruz.
Hello.
And Chief Engineer Lieutenant Commander Connor Frater.
Good morning.
It is Monday, May 22nd, 2023. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at the Gaming Discourse. Go to our YouTube channel, YouTube/Gaming Discourse. A new video is up. Cosmetics are gameplay. And then in parentheses, what did I put in the parentheses? Why live service and why live service economies suck in general. The reason I tripped up there was because I was going to make an Aqua Teen Hunger Force joke, but I didn't remember what Carl says. I'm going to rock your body. Oh, yeah, that's it. And then parentheses, to the break of dawn. anyway, go check out the video.
Stone Cold Lock of the Century of the Week.
The tuna. Carl, badass football expert. Go check out the video. I'm really proud of it. I think it came together really well. And it's something that I've wanted to argue for a long time, and I think I did a good job arguing it. So go watch it, go like it, go comment. What's that when you tell people to do a thing? Call to action.
Oh,
it's a call to action. Go out there and check it out. I'm really proud of it. Yeah. Okay.
Please check out the Gaming Discourse FM, where we highlight our favorite video game music throughout the years. It's going to be a short episode this week.
Yeah,
every Wednesday. Sorry.
This past one, what was it? Bayonetta was in there.
Bayonetta, Honkai Star Rail. There was,
which is like the third or fourth or sixth time that Star Rail's been in there.
First.
You know, you've had it in there before.
Just talked about it during the podcast a couple times.
Yeah,
maybe that's
Star Rail's the first. Genshin's been in there twice.
Oh, okay. I apologize.
That's okay.
Rude ass.
I know. Hey.
I think was Parappa in there? No, that was last week. I can't remember.
Okay. Well, we've got lots of
10
news.
songs every week. You forget after 13 episodes.
We've got games.
Mm-hmm.
Would you like to start us off, Connor?
Well, guess what time of the year it is, guys?
Crusader Kings 2 time?
No.
Oh.
Civilization 6 time.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I reinstalled and started playing that again. Just got the itch for a 4X strategy game.
So why 6 and not like 4 or 5 like everyone argues?
Yeah, just first one I thought of.
Okay.
Yeah. No real reason to it.
Okay, all right. Hey, you just wanted Civilization, guy.
Yeah, I just wanted to play Civilization. And like, 6 was fun. Install 6.
There you go.
Yeah.
Easy.
Anything new you want to report about Civ 6?
It's been talked about.
No?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there you heard it here first. Civ 6. It's been talked about. Nothing else to say. Richard.
More Star Rail. More Honkai Star Rail. And I've actually gotten more into it, and I've encountered some really neat things. So unlike traditional JRPGs, I started to notice as I was playing that when you go into a battle, there are no options, so to speak. You can only attack. There are no item menus. There are no defense options, because you could choose usually attack, defend, skills, or items. So you have to kind of be aware of who you take in, and what they can do, because your items are essentially the characters that you choose. Mm-hmm. So you'll have characters that will they will defend and at the same time cause aggro to all of the enemies to attack that singular person, so that you can kind of take the weight off other characters. And then you have other characters who will buff others, and then your healers, etc. So compared to other traditional RPGs, I thought that was an interesting system to put into place. And it makes you think about your team composition a little more. And I started to explore more of the side content, and there's a very interesting section of the game called the Simulated Universe. There's this character who's very much into tech and whatnot, and she creates a simulated universe where it kind of takes all of your abilities and all of the enemies that are out and about in the world, and she kind of throws them into this gauntlet that you'll go through, and she's doing it in order to simulate whenever you run into like an astral being, there are several astral beings in the game that they explain, and if you run into them, what the consequences will be, what the like how you'll talk to them. And so when you go through the game, or when you go through this mode, it is a blend of course, JRPG and a blend of, I'll use the closest thing, like Hades. You will get, after usually each fight, you will get a perk that you choose that will last for the rest of your playthrough.
Okay.
So you can choose, like, whenever you activate an ultimate, you will gain a shield based off of your a percentage of your max HP. So, or like, you know, if you do a follow-up attack, that follow-up attack will do more damage, etc. And in between those, you will also get occurrences that will, you will run into a simulated situation that presents itself like very much in the vein of Disco Elysium. Not exactly like that, but you will get an image and you will get a very text-based heavy explanation of what is happening in that situation.
Oh, okay.
And you get to respond accordingly. It's not as deep, but it's far more engaging than I would have expected.
Okay.
So this particular mode in general has kept me very, very interested. And I will get to the rest of the game as well, but the rewards and what you can do in that mode is quite addictive. So I'm playing that a lot. I thought it was very interesting. And of course, I've gotten a lot more into Zelda.
Yep. So have I, somewhat.
As I've gone along, and I am enjoying it. And I have like complaints about it, but like my complaints are very few compared to like how much fun I'm having. And I have that itch of like, oh, I want to play Zelda. When I play Zelda, I don't have too much of an itch to make stuff still.
Yeah.
When I can, I will. But I think two of the major things is like I was on my way to, I don't know how far you guys are, but I was on my way to Rito Village.
I have not gotten there yet.
Of course, there's a section where the bridge is out. So, oh no, of course.
So you just put together a couple
and
wood
so it's
panels
and it's like, I don't want to, all right, fine. And I got to knock down tree, build something. And it sucks because when you fail at building the thing and the bridge is very high up and you fall all the way down, there's no easy way to get back to where you, and so it's like, all right, so I got to find my way or like go back up to a tower to fly back over there or something. Sometimes that can get annoying. And forgetting about which abilities you have is also terrible as well. Because I came to an area where I had to get into, and there's a character outside of it, and he's like,
I know exactly what you're talking
about. I need to get in here, and he's like,
well, so the character asks you for an item.
Yes, he does,
and it comes across like it's a quest.
Yeah.
So your brain, through years and years of games, goes into autopilot because you know exactly what you're supposed to do.
Yep.
And then when this item that you're supposed to get is clearly not appearing, your brain's autopilot goes to, okay, it's a bug. I'm not getting a spawn. You're getting one of those things. But yes, as soon as that same thing happened to me, and then when I looked it up, I was like, oh, okay, that's my fault, because there had been other situations where I had used that ability when I was supposed to, and I thought of it organically. So in that way, I thought it was fine that the game did that. I'm kind of in the same spot with regards to like building stuff. It's fun, you build a thing, you put it together, you roll it down a hill, whatever. But it like takes time. Yeah. So right now it's a lot of it kind of feels like I'm just playing a big Breath of the Wild DLC. I'm still running around. I don't like the way horses feel.
Yeah, horses I was going to bring that up last week, but I forgot.
I really don't like the way horses control. That's something that is like, that's one of those things that gets debated a lot, because what do you want a horse to feel like, and what's, and so in Red Dead Redemption, like horses kind of felt alive, but Red Dead had this like groundedness to it that where it made sense. But I think in Tears of the Kingdom, it kind of feels rigid and weird, and it just takes a second to get used to it. And it's just easier not to have a horse. Yeah. Because it's just, I don't know. So, there's stuff like that. But yeah, like I've built there was one thing where I found a Korok, and he's like, I need to go to my friend. And there was all this stuff that I could use to build and take the Korok. and I just picked the Korok up with my Ultra Hand and just walked it like a mile over to the friend and dropped it. Because I was like, yeah, I can build, but it's going to take 30 minutes, and then it's going to veer off and hit a rock and break. So it's like, I'm just going to carry him, and it worked. So I have not encountered like there's been some moments that are really cool, but I have not encountered something where it's like it feels like the abilities have elevated the game to being something totally like that I've never experienced before, if that makes sense. And again, I compare it to Halo Infinite. Halo Infinite had all these abilities, but the open world didn't like
lend itself to
those abilities. So they were fun things to have. Now, again, I'm not very far in Tears of the Kingdom, so it may eventually happen where I run into a castle or now the puzzles are amazing, the puzzles are awesome, but the puzzles are sort of they're all in literal vacuums, right? So it's like they are separated from the rest of the open world. So when you're going around the open world, it's like I'm trying to find excuses to build stuff, but I never. It's like there's always just an easier way to do it or something. You come across a river and it's like, oh, I could build a boat, but there's not a sail, and so it's like, screw it, I'll just run because and maybe you get the ability to build a sail or something, or maybe there's a sail nearby. I don't know. Stuff like that. So I'm enjoying it too, but I don't have this. It's like, I don't know. It doesn't have the same, and maybe it's just a preference thing because it does not have the same like immediate intrigue and pull that like God of War Ragnarok had. And Ragnarok was similar in that it took the ideas. It was a franchise reboot, took the ideas from the reboot and sort of evolved them in a different way. Tears of the Kingdom is very similar. But Ragnarok has more of a standard narrative and stuff like that. Oh, and that's the other thing. The story in Tears of the Kingdom, and again, not super far into it, so I'm sure there's stuff that I have not read or journals or characters that I have not spoken to yet. But the story is just it's kind of weird thus far, and it's one of those things where okay, how much do things matter? Beginning of the game, we're underground, a new villain, game begins. Super convenient, fine, right?
It also introduces a new race that was never mentioned.
Yeah, the Zonai.
But beforehand.
Yeah. So, that's fine because Breath of the Wild was never. It was a fun story. It was never this story where it was super duper plot heavy and like lore heavy, right? And when you compare it to something like Dragon Age Inquisition or Witcher, right? That does not mean it is worse than those. It's just a different style of narrative. But in this one, it's sort of, I think it's having trouble with that, I feel like, because all the stuff, what was the technology from the first game?
The Sheikah.
Sheikah is completely gone.
Yeah.
So, and again, is there a character I'm going to run into somewhere who does like a throwaway, oh, we cleaned up all the Sheikah stuff a year ago, Link? It's like, okay, you wrote it off in this line, but it's still just weird that it's completely gone, right?
Yeah.
And fighting the Sheikah robots was like a big part of Breath of the Wild, and there's not any that I have encountered. There may be some out in the world somewhere, but in like throughout Hyrule, like the center of the map and stuff, I have not encountered or even seen like a. Now in Breath of the Wild, they were there because you'd get parts from them, and you do stuff. So obviously you don't need those parts in this game, but even then, it's like okay, but they could be there for combat. They could give you a part that you could. I don't know. It's awkward to see how many of those things were all over the place. And how they're just nowhere now. And something's going on with Zelda, because she was transported, and you're not sure what's going on. But then you watch cutscenes, so it feels like it's trying to tell a little bit. Because Breath of the Wild was you wake from amnesia and you're finding out what happened because you don't know much about the world, right?
Right.
So it's like, who is Link? What is this world? Who is Calamity Ganon? And you're getting your memories back and learning who all these characters were and stuff like that. In this one, it's kind of strange because now they have to like push the narrative forward. So they have to introduce things that are deeper than you just remembering something about something that happened in the past. There has to be something that drives the future now. And it's just kind of, I guess it's just all kind of very strange. I'm not a huge fan of it thus far. But it's fine. Don't send us bomb threats. It's fine, 10 out of 10. It's the only game that should ever exist.
Yeah, I complained about it a lot to someone today, but at the end of my like kind of complaints, I kind of just like, but it's a video game. Like, I'm not gonna like spend too much time on it. Like dwell on like why things are the way they are. Like, because that's a big problem. Is like stuff just disappeared. Like it's all gone now. Like
and how much? And again, it's the how much does that matter?
Yes,
it's awkward,
right? But
does it matter a whole lot? Probably not. Again, if Breath of the Wild had as much dialogue as Disco Elysium, I would be annoyed, but that's not the context in which Breath of the Wild set itself. It was a minimalist narrative, right? But even within the context of a minimalist narrative, it's such a huge question mark. And again, there's probably a character somewhere who says something.
Yeah.
But I'm just searching around for this character. And the other thing is the ruins came out of the sky is what I keep seeing NPCs say. But,
I thought they came out of the ground to go into the sky.
Yeah, that's what.
And then they're falling back down again.
That's what's weird. So it's like, okay, so everything went up but back down, but you're not sure if like, wait, were they in the? And then you see flashbacks to where the zone I lived, and it's not below ground or in the air. So it's like, okay. Like what the hell's going on here? Like where were we? Why did we go up and down? Why are and again, it's like. Does it need to answer those questions? Probably not, but it's just awkward that NPCs will say things and it just kind of comes across awkward, but you just have to brush it aside and keep going. Tears of the Kingdom has much more of that, where it's like, it feels like there are questions that it should explain about the world, but I don't think it wants to, because it doesn't feel that it's important, if that makes sense. And that's totally fine. And the more story you encounter, it'll probably make more sense later on. But so I think that's really the only game I've been playing. New Star Trek.
I just see your Path of Exile or whatever you're playing.
Oh, that's right.
Pillars of Eternity.
I had Pillars of Eternity because I got that quote. So I have not played Pillars of Eternity very much.
Before we move on from Tears of the Kingdom, I do want to say that I think that the story so far for Tears of the Kingdom probably would have been better fit if they just made it its own thing instead of trying to tie it back into Breath of the Wild.
I would agree.
And also that this isn't to tie in the story, this is just gameplay. I don't know if either of you have completed one of the temples yet.
No, I'm on my way to do the first one, the quote-unquote first one.
I did one of the temples, and I spent more time in the temple creating a cool boat than actually solving the puzzle.
Cool.
I was a little disappointed that it wasn't really puzzly. It was bland.
That's unfortunate. I kind of hate that. Like the easiest solution you think it is what it is. Because there's 2 shrines now that I've come across.
Oh, like 5 minutes in, I was like, oh, so this is what it is. And then I spent like 45 minutes making a really cool boat just so I could scoot around for a little bit.
So you might know. Did you go to Rito or did
I
you
went
go
to Zora?
Okay,
first.
You went to Zora. So I had 2 shrine stories, but there's a shrine when you go to Rito. Not on your way to Rito, but on your way to the temple that belongs in Rito, whatever. Where the name of the temple is something like it indicates that it's going to be like a very tall thing. And you're like, okay, so you walk into the area and it's a room and it has the gate. So it's a square room. The gate is right there, and you're just like, there's nothing else. And you're like, okay, and you look up, long, tall, like ceiling. And so I'm sitting there like, how am I supposed to get out of this? Like, what's going on? Oh, the name of the shrine suggests that I need to like maybe get up there somehow or like fall down or whatever. And I spent a little bit in there and my brain was just like, no, just look it up. I was like, oh, okay, look it up. It's like, yeah, behind the gate, there's a thing, just shoot it with an arrow. And it's like, what? Like, why present me with like visually like, my fault, I guess, for like,
sure
taking context,
but you want to use your abilities.
Yeah.
You kind of expect, you want to put things together. You want to use the ability where you shoot up through a ceiling or something. You want that to be incorporated into, like, in the open world, you have to find, I imagine as a game developer, that's more difficult to implement in the open world because you can't control the player in the open world, right? The player is going to be doing whatever they want. So setting the context is more complicated, but when you have that curated story moment, now you can sort of have the player in a controlled environment, and you want all those. And again, that's the thing with Halo Infinite, was like they give you all these abilities, but there was never a moment where it was like, oh, this, I have to use the dash here, or I have to use the shield wall here. It was just grapple hook everywhere. It doesn't really matter.
And I think something I said last week, whereas especially the ascend ability feels like it was either an afterthought or added on early and then never fully developed. I'm starting to lean more towards afterthought, because having the ascend ability in the vast emptiness of, the Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom map, it's really going to be limited use down to very specific instances.
Yeah, I haven't.
There's really no other area that you're going to use it outside of shrines, temples, the occasional like sky little buildings,
the sky puzzle things.
Because there's nothing really there. The majority of the map is open, nothing above you. That ability is very niche use.
I think it's also more of a convenience. Because there's like 60 something wells in the game for you to discover, and there's a side quest that's associated with them.
Oh, because that guy that's living in the wells.
There's a person who's like studying the wells, and they're like, tell me about the wells, and there's like 68 of them or something, right? Yeah. So, and there's wells, caves, anything with a dirt roof. So all of that, instead of having to find the cave entrance, instead of having to climb back up the ladder or whatever, when you go down into like your main hub base, it's like you're in that main hub base area. Instead of climbing the ladder, you just hit the ascent ability. So it makes traversal easier. And again, that was sort of that was one of the things with the grappling hook in Halo Infinite. But so I agree that I kind of wish it was implemented into gameplay. But I think it's a good thing that it's there, because it takes away from a lot of the you clear out the well and then you have to run back to the ladder. You don't have to do that now. You just ascend out of the well, you pop out of the ground. I had a cool moment where I was in a well, I went through it, cleared it out, and I was like, okay, I'm done. I hit the ascent ability, and it's a loading screen, but Link was like climbing for a while, and I'm like, where the hell? And I came up on top of a huge mountain, like at the very tip, and I was like, oh, cool, because I was in this well, but wherever I hit the ground happened to be like the base of a mountain. So I was like, oh, that's fun, stuff like that. So, and it would be neat if there was an ability where you could, like, I don't know, dive underground for a split second and go back up and make, but now we're just making shit up.
Well, I think the ascend ability would have benefited from it being a multi-use ability of like having underground traversal or something like that.
And again, we haven't played the whole game, so maybe stuff like that is out there. I will say that combat is, Breath of the Wild's combat was good, but it wasn't like amazing. I never thought it was incredible or anything.
Yeah, with the introduction of the convenient idea that all the weapons are rusted, it's like now when I go, like I have to panic now because I got to make something that will be at least somewhat effective. And so I'm kind of like fumbling and like when I need to like pull out something.
That doesn't bother me very much, but obviously that's going to be one of those things where it's like, I don't know, people either think it's the worst thing on earth or not, which is fine. But I think combat is best because there are plenty of times where it works in your abilities. Anytime an enemy throws anything, I switch to the reverse thing. And the big rock guys, they throw the rock, I switch to the reverse thing, click on the rock flies back at the big rock guy and hits him. And stuns them. One thing I was super disappointed in was I timed it right when an enemy shot a bow at me, and I was like, hell yeah, I'm going to reverse this arrow, and you can't reverse arrows. And I was like, son of a gun, how dare you? How dare you not let me reverse
It wouldn't go
arrow?
back the arrow side anyways.
Go back to the fletching side.
It's magic. It's Nintendo. They can make it happen.
Oh my god.
But just to tack onto combat real quick, for where I ended up, the Zoro domain, the boss fight to the lead up to the temple, underwhelming.
Okay.
And I know, there'll be comments on like every time someone talks about how disappointment in the game. It's a kid's game. Well, yeah, but
I really dislike.
I dislike that, and
I really dislike that too.
Yeah,
because I don't know that. Why can't kids have something that's intricate and complicated? I was playing Splinter Cell Pandora Tomorrow when I was 12, and that's not a quote unquote kids game.
Yeah,
I that really bothers me when people devalue intricate, complex entertainment for children as if children are all more. I mean, most of them are. I was, but kids were in the 80s, kids were growing up watching Alien and Aliens and fucking Star Wars, and it's like none of that was perfectly palatable to adults as well. So, but it doesn't mean that a 6-year-old should be given Elden Ring to figure out. But we're not talking about 6 years. I don't know. Yes, that bothers me too.
Yes,
it's like kids can do it. I believe in children. Children are smarter today than you have 11-year-olds that are starting careers in game development on Roblox. Like
I was gonna continue that. The boss fight for the Zoro domain in Breath of the Wild and the dungeon itself leading up to the boss fight was more fun and interesting than Tears of the Kingdom. So it feels like a big step backwards right there.
I'll have to. Yeah, I haven't gotten to any of those things. I'll have to just
take your time, grind out
myself.
The shrines, one shot every boss.
Real quick, one more thing.
Play the accurate Link.
I get very annoyed having to do the shrines to gain hearts or stamina. Like having to find shrines to get those. Because it's my old self, fighting with my new self. Because all old Zelda games, you find new hearts organically, or you had to find 4 heart pieces to create a heart. So in the same vein, you have to get 4 shrines to upgrade 1 heart or your stamina. But it's just, I think it comes from a point of I just don't have time to do this.
I will say that it may be a little more. If they would have made the change where when you beat a shrine, you can just pick like stamina or heart, stamina or heart, stamina or heart, instead of here's an orb. Then you have to take that orb to a statue, and then that statue in an 1.5-hour long cutscene it gives you, which you can skip past. You can skip past
all cutscenes.
Cutscenes and stuff. And that's a debate that's bigger than Zelda because there's a lot of games with like those.
No, there isn't.
Repetitive and stuff like that. Okay, so real quick, I'm gonna read this. So last week I was talking about Seraphim from Pillars of Eternity 2, and so there's like there's a couple times when you get to know a character in a video game, or I guess a character in any form of fiction. And it's like there's the one line that's like, oh, that character's awesome. I like that character, right? So Seraphim in Pillars 2 is a pirate. He's a member of like I forget the name, but it's like a pseudo-government, pseudo-coalition of pirates, right?
Piratey pirates.
And so you can talk to him, you can ask him questions, and one of the dialogue options is like, so Seraphim, why are you a pirate? I'm gonna do my best Seraphim here.
Oh,
the voice acting is phenomenal, but so you're like Seraphim, why are you a pirate? And Seraphim responds, why not? Smell of the sea, creak of the rigging, blast of the cannons, rush of boarding a right piece of prey, a mug of spiced rum in my hands and a bawdy song on my lips, a lad or lass in every port and another in my hammock. It be a pirate's life for me. And I was like, God damn it. What an awesome line. What a freaking awesome line. Good for him. Good for Seraphim. You go be pirating.
He knows what he wants.
And he's a good character too. He's a cipher. The ciphers are interesting, like mind weaver things. Anyway, that's what I was gonna bring up last week, but didn't have the time. Okay, we ready for the commercial?
Let's do it.
Okay. Thanks for listening. If you like our content, please consider subscribing or leaving a like and comment. You can find us at patreon.com/thegamingdiscourse. And our tiers are $2, $4, $7, and $10 and include getting your name in the video credits, early access, and access to our Discord server. EA Sports is going to allow players to opt in and receive payments for likeness. So some background here, EA is returning to college football with EA Sports College Football, the last EA college football game, NCAA Football 2014, with Denard Robinson on the cover. ESPN spoke with an EA Sports representative. Details are still being finalized, including how much an athlete will receive. Players who opt in to have their likeness included in-game will receive compensation. Players can opt out, in which case a generic avatar will take that player's place. For some players that opt in, face scans will be possible, but not for every athlete, since there are thousands across the FBS, which is the FBS is the term for major college football, so your Michigans, Oklahomas, ASU, stuff like that. According to the representative, more than 120 FBS schools have committed to being in the game, including all 10 conferences and the college football playoff. So I know you guys probably haven't followed it, but over the last decade, there's been a conversation about like should athletes, student athletes be paid and stuff like that. And
I'm related to you. I've heard this conversation many times.
And obviously they should. I think there's a lot of reform in not just collegiate athletics, but also just college in general across the American educational system. But yeah, when we talk about should athletes be paid, I think that's an obvious yes. But how do you go about it is super complicated, and I don't know. And also, it didn't say how much they were going to be paid. But that's a tricky thing for EA, because I'm sure they don't want to. Because if there are thousands... Because there are thousands of athletes... But athletes that are going to be famous in any given year for college football, there's probably at most 5 or 6 that are going to be like, if you're a college football fan,
basically those that were going to be in the Heisman running,
or if not Heisman running, guys that are going to be, in a year where a quarterback's not going to be taken first in the NFL draft. You'll have guys that maybe like a defensive end or something like that that'll go first in the NFL draft, who was talked about beforehand. So yeah, there are. It's like how much is a guy who is Caleb Williams was the Heisman Trophy winner last year, this year, whatever. So his likeness is going to be expensive, as opposed to the left tackle at Eastern Michigan, who I have no idea who that's going to be. But do you pay them the same? Do you pay them differently? I don't know. It's a fascinating thing. And I don't know how the NFL does it. I don't know if the NFL, all the players get paid the same or how that works in the NFL with their likeness being in the games. Or if they sign away the likeness because they already make so much in contracts. I honestly don't know how professional sports
I haven't
works.
Thought about that.
Yeah, neither have I until
that's probably more closely related to the Players Association than anything else.
Well,
than
yes,
the actual NFL itself.
Because they're unionized.
Yeah.
So I don't know if when it comes to their likeness because obviously with like advertisements and stuff, that's them, and that's outside the scope of their like contract with their team.
Yeah.
But I don't know in the NFL if the NFL has a deal with the NFLPA where athletes aren't making money off of their likeness in Madden because they're already at the professional level they're already being paid so much. I honestly don't know, and it's probably more too complicated just to Google. There's a lot of interesting stuff about this. So recruiting is a big deal now, especially recruiting's always been a huge deal, but especially now because of name, image, and likeness. You can make money off of that stuff. Recruiting is even bigger, and so you've got schools like Texas A&M that have recently made gigantic pushes. Deion Sanders took the job at Colorado, and Colorado historically has been like a decent school, but never on like the level of like an Alabama or an Oklahoma or a Texas or whatever. But with Deion Sanders going to Colorado, that's Deion Sanders. He's famous. He's flashy, right? He brings a lot of personality. And so that's only recruiting power, but that's also selling potential there too. So I think I would be surprised if a team wasn't in decided not to get in on this because it's a selling point to say, you sign with our school, we have this, you're going to be in this video game.
Yeah.
And you're going to make money off of your likeness and whatnot. So if a school isn't there, and there's only like 130 something, like maybe even less than that, FBS schools. So 120 is almost all FBS schools.
Yeah.
Now, mechanically, what's interesting is the way so with all the previous NCAA games, the first year of the college football playoff, 2015, I think. Was it 2015?
What?
First year of the college football playoff? I think it was 2015. So, sorry. What I was getting to. Prior to the college football playoff, the way the national championship was decided was the BCS, the Bowl Championship Series, and that was a computer. So the teams would play, right, and then at the end of the year, the top two teams in the nation would go head to head in the championship game, right?
Of course.
But there was no playoff. And it's been like that for a really long time, right? So you had bowl games. So traditionally, before the college football playoff, you had the first and second ranked team in the country. According to a lot of different data, they would go play in the national championship game. So they would end their season, they would go straight to a national championship game. And then you'd have other bowls: Sugar Bowl, Cotton Bowl, Fiesta Bowl, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
And those are like they are major bowls, but they're not championships. But those are like top 10 teams are going to go into those bowls as well. And now how the college football playoff works is there's a committee of people that changes out every few years. Paula Boven, who was a writer for the Arizona Republic, was on the committee a couple of years ago. But this committee now decides, much like college basketball, which 4 teams are going to make it into the college football playoff. So there's a human element now where there wasn't really with the BCS. That's going to expand because the college football playoff is expanding from 4 to 8, I think, in a couple of years. I don't remember. But that's interesting from a gameplay perspective because in NCAA 10, right, if you want to make it to the championship, you basically have to have an undefeated season. And the computer is simulating what the real BCS computer is doing. But now with this new EA college football game, they have to figure out a way to gamify a very human process because it's this committee of people. And I think that's really fascinating because how do you do that? There's a huge discussion in college football where it's most deserving versus best, right? So Alabama will go an entire season. They'll lose one game, right? And they'll lose in overtime or something. But their schedule is really strong. They beat, say Auburn's good that year. They beat Auburn. Say LSU's good that year. They beat LSU. So they beat a lot of good teams, but they lost one game against Tennessee in overtime, right? In a random October Saturday. And then you have teams like TCU, right? This past year, TCU went undefeated in their conference, which is the Big 12. The Big 12 was a weak conference this year, but TCU went undefeated in a major conference. So conversation becomes, okay, so you have a team that is clearly not as good as Alabama, and I'm just making this up, but they went undefeated. So they're deserving to get into the college football playoff versus Alabama, who is the better team, but they had this trip
all these other,
and that's the human discussion that is fascinating and people yell and argue about every, once we get into college football playoff season. So that'll be fascinating to see how they do that. With there being the extension in the college football playoff, the getting in will be easier now because so they talked about 10 conferences. You have a Power 5 and a Group of 5 in college football. And there's no rule. It's just sort of the way things are and have been for a long time, but this is changing too. But traditionally, you had 5 power conferences. And these are where all the teams you heard of play. Michigan, the Big Ten, ASU, USC, the Pac-12, Oklahoma, Texas, Big 12, right? Whatever. But then there's teams like Wyoming who are in the, I don't know, like the Mountain West or something. I don't even know. There's San Diego State, who is in the Mountain West. I don't know, the Sun Belt, maybe. I don't know. There's like this group of 5 where these teams can make it into the college football playoff, but because their conferences are considered lesser, they may go undefeated in a year and be left out because the competition's considered less.
Right.
So there's a lot of fascinating stuff going on here. But when it comes to players being paid, they should. I don't know. I mean, honestly, what's fair is that every player makes the same amount of money, and they make a lot of money.
I wonder if there will be a cap of some sort, like maybe like 5K each player or something like that.
They're probably, because there isn't a union for collegiate players.
Yeah.
There's going to be a really pitiful flat fee.
Arbitrary cap. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Although, like, depending on who you are, because this is a problem that, and I know it's not the same exact thing, but there's a very popular game on PS2, Xbox, GameCube called Def Jam Fight for New York. Very, very good fighting game featuring a bunch of artists, rap artists, R&B artists, stuff like that. People would love a remaster for that game, or a remake, or re-release.
Yeah.
The logistics behind it, with licensing issues and contracts with these rappers, it's a bit of a nightmare. Not saying it can't happen, but I do know that there are newer generations of rappers, of artists who probably would just be stoked to be in a video game. So they probably, I can't decide for them, but they probably wouldn't ask for it as much as others, rather than just having their face in a game.
Sure, yeah.
And so for a college kid, which I know everything is hard, and I know it's like money-wise, I'm sure they would probably take anything they can get. I'm sure they wouldn't want $50, but like $1,000, $5,000 for them could probably go pretty far.
And that's what you have to be careful with. Because from a business standpoint, you are correct. From an ethical standpoint, you get into
taking advantage.
Into what is the correct thing to do. Now, the other thing you have to remember is NIL has existed for a few years now. So the group that EA Sports partnered with a talent agency or something along the lines of a talent agency to help work this out. So you have sort of agents who are starting to the infrastructure is in place, the pipelines are in place where you have kids going from high school to college, and they're not just figuring out their name, image, likeness deals on their own. There are people who are getting into, and that's what makes the business somewhat tricky, because you have a 19-year-old kid who just graduated high school. He's good enough to play, for Georgia.
But still can't talk to girls.
Sure. But it's like, okay, but now you're telling this 19-year-old, okay, you're going to make this much, and there's millions of dollars on the line here, and you're going to make this much, and this kid's having to like deal with a professional system, which is you have an agent, they're going to set up this kind of deal for you, how much money you're going to be made, and there's all kinds of horror stories, and this is one reason why people don't like the idea of college athletes making money, because there are all kinds of horror stories in the past about guys losing money, about guys going pro and getting injured, and the people that they had around them that were managing money didn't manage the money correctly. So it's like they signed a $10 million contract, but they only saw $250,000 of that, and the rest somehow disappeared somewhere. Horrible stuff like that. So that's sort of the moral panic that you see from people who dislike that. And there is some trepidation, because obviously you don't want 19-year-old kids to get taken advantage of. But at the same time, if they're not making this money, it's just some old white TV executive somewhere who's making money off of the Fiesta Bowl, and he can go fuck off. So these kids should make that money. They're the ones that people tune in to see. As famous as Nick Saban is, as famous as Kirby Smart is, right? It's Stetson Bennett that people turn on the TV to see. It's the players of Georgia, right?
Yeah.
So that's who should be. That's who should be paid. I don't. Oh, and the other thing. So just as a difference between college and NFL, college football has a much more vibrant, storied history around it. So we talked about last week, we joked about like the console wars, and I brought up like how people arbitrarily are fans of like NFL teams. And then I think, Richard, you like jokingly said that people like defend their favorite console like it's their mom or something. But college football, there the history of various college football rivalries goes back hundreds of years, and there are rivalries that go back Civil War, right? Like ridiculous. So you're talking 150 years, right? Almost 200 years of history.
Army versus Navy.
Yeah, stuff like that. And so that sort of history and that legacy is what makes college football really fascinating and really interesting. And it's a regional thing too, right? So it's like you have like in Arizona, you have people in Tempe who are ASU fans, and then people in Tucson who are Arizona fans. But in the state of Arizona, there's only one professional football team, and that's the Cardinals. And in the 4 states, New Mexico, Colorado, Utah, there's only one professional football team, and that's the Arizona Cardinals. And, besides the Denver Broncos. So
I was like, wait, what?
Until you go
into let it slide.
Until you go into California, and there's like 6 NFL teams. But the point I was trying to make is the density is way more in college football, so it's regional.
Yeah.
So the histories of towns, right? You go into something like Norman, Oklahoma, and it feels like once you enter Norman, Oklahoma, the entire town is the university. It's all red. It's all Boomer Sooner everywhere. It's the OU logos everywhere. And that culture and that excitement. And it's very like young excitement. It's sort of a youthful sort of exuberance that bleeds into the sport, and that's what makes it so fun. So I want that type of game to exist, but it should exist in a context where players are being paid. Do you guys have anything you want to say about college football?
I will say you're correct for Wyoming and San Diego State. They are both in Mountain West.
Hell yeah! My college football fan card is stamped.
Wyoming is in the mountain side of Mountain West, and San Diego State in the west side of Mountain West.
Yeah. There's also the Mid-Atlantic Conference. MAC, right?
Yeah.
And my favorite thing is the Mid-Atlantic Conference will have late Saturday night games, and the hashtag is #Maction. Hell yeah! All right, let's Richard.
Hey,
what Zelnick say?
Strauss Zelnick says that Take-Two isn't seeing pushback on the $70 price point. And this was during Take-Two's last earnings call, and it was first reported on by Video Games Chronicle, which is also where we got the story from. According to VGC, an industry analyst said that there are recent examples of Take-Two competitors offering discounts on games soon after release, and asked if players are struggling to come to terms with the new $70 price points. Zelnick responded saying, quote, "We are not seeing pushback on the frontline price. What we are seeing is consumers are seeking to limit their spending by going either to the stuff they really, really care about or to value, and sometimes it could be both. The other news is we have a robust frontline release schedule, and without regard to price, there has been some pressure as a result if a customer sees something that is interesting, but not necessarily yet a huge blockbuster. We think that will change. This is a growth business, and this is a unique market," end quote.
Yeah, so I think this is interesting, and Zelnick's one of those guys who just loves to
talk.
I don't want to say drop bars, because that's like a positive comment. He loves to drop butter bars that
are already melted.
Yeah, they're already melted. But he's correct. I think he's correct in what he's saying is that there isn't a negative market reaction, at least in his mind.
Not much of one.
No, that's separate from the conversation of should games cost $70. And I don't think that's a total yes answer. I don't think it's a total no answer either. And we've had this conversation a lot. Richard, the example we usually bring up is something like Witcher, where it's like Witcher with all of its expansions. How is that not a $150 experience? Because you just get so much crap out of it. And that's just one example.
It's a conversation that's been going on since NES, SNES. So. For
a super long time. But like something like what Nintendo did with Tears of the Kingdom, where, for a while it was $60 to pre-order, and then all of a sudden Nintendo was like, it's $70 now. It's like, okay, all right, you did that because you could get away with it, not because you had to recoup costs from development or because it cost more to develop or anything like that. It's just because you knew you would get away with it. So that's a bit of a different context. But I think it's interesting because I have heard somebody. It was interesting. It was just this weekend that someone I knew told me that they just weren't going to buy premium games anymore because they were like, $70. I'll just wait for a sale. And I was like, oh wow, okay, specifically because of $70. What kind of reaction do you get with like when you tell people, okay, that'll be $69.99.
What? I don't sell things for $69.99.
You guys don't sell anything new?
No, nothing new. I'm sorry.
You got to change that.
Well, we don't make anything of it. Like, we had to pay pretty much full price to get the item to sell it for full price.
Oh, really?
That's how it works. Yeah.
Okay.
I think
excuse.
No,
I just want to support you.
No, I appreciate it.
I want to get my $70 games.
I think we'd have to pay like $65 or something and then get the game. Yeah. So the margin is bad.
Okay. Yeah.
But a lot of the $60 games, I think we bring them down to like $55 when they come in.
Oh, okay.
Or a lot of the $70 games, whatever. But there is negative talk on it. But it always just has this like, games are $60 or $70 now. I guess I'll buy it.
Yeah.
You know, it's more frustration or anything. But there are a lot of people who also hold off on sales because there are games that go on sale frequently that just come out. But it's very strange because it's usually not. Games can have sales for many different reasons. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have to be. Because after a week, a quote unquote game is doing bad, like it's just on sale, you know? And so people take that as a negative all the time, especially Twitter. I know Twitter is not the place to look for this, but it's just like, wow, this game's already on sale for $10, must be crap. And it's like, well, no, it's just on sale, you fuckhead. Like, you know, especially during Christmas, because you want to sell the game for Christmas. That's to get your margins up. Like that's how it works. And
I've always assumed that the philosophy was, and why this is why Steam sales are so prevalent, is that you discount a game 30%, that's going to incentivize sales that weren't there at all. So you're making less money, but you're making money in a situation where you wouldn't have had you not discounted the game.
Right.
And that's always been something that I figured was the reason why so many people are fine with putting their games on sale on Steam and whatnot.
It's also a problem, particularly with like the Hollywood industry and the video game industry, is that they only look at the initial release sales. They don't look at the sales like
long term.
The tail,
right. And so, very famous. We'll always come back to it. But Square Enix, when they're like, Tomb Raider sold 4 million copies, that fucking sucks. And it's like, what? No, like that's really good. That's actually really good. So it's unfortunate that I hope they don't start to, but I know they probably will see that like, oh, we didn't have strong sales at the beginning. We'll probably not give this title another chance or something like that. Whereas like they'll release more as the game, or they'll sell more as the game goes on.
I do,
when it gets cheaper.
Yeah, so that the conventional wisdom is the long tail, right? Is the games are going to sell most in like their first week or two on the market, and then after that it goes down. That's the whole reason behind retention, is you want to pull that line up on the graph. So that's why you buy a fucking microtransaction for $20. Because it pulls that lineup on the long tail, retention models, all that. But with the $70 price, I do wonder, like, okay, and this is what they were talking about: Midnight Suns, which was a $70,
right?
Which did not, which reviewed well, but did not sell well.
So
it's like on sale everywhere, and you see ads for it on, like, I keep saying YouTube ads. Midnight Suns 50% off, which is tempting because I hear good things about it.
It's a very good game. It is very real quick to coincide with like the consumer reaction. It's very hard to sell a game with superheroes in it and not have superhero type action in it, because it is a turn-based card game. It's like, and immediately when people heard that, I have a very regular customer, as soon as he found that out, he's like, stupid. And I was like,
which is too bad, because I think it should, explore, do other fun things with the characters. But
the average human doesn't have the brain for that.
Okay, so what was
gamers?
Oh no, what's going on?
I write the books. Okay, you come in here, you're fired. No, okay. What was I gonna? What was I gonna say?
Foaming at the mouth.
Run before Richard kills us again. What was I gonna? Damn it! What was I gonna say?
I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Oh, so there is going to be a price where, because of the prevalence of sales, because the used game market is not dead.
No.
It's definitely limited now, but nowhere near is it dead. I'm waiting for Jedi Fallen, Jedi Survivor. Like that'll be.
You want to borrow it? I haven't.
I do want to borrow it. In a little bit. I got 2 other games I'm playing.
Sure.
But
let me know.
Let
me know.
That is a game that, like, in my head, I just checkmarked as, okay, I'll get to this eventually, but it'll be a used copy, right?
Got it.
Now, if it released at 60, That's different. But with $70, that changes the conversation for me personally. Now, how many more people does the conversation change if you bump that up to 75 or 80? I think even more and more and more. So the danger here is you want to try and sell games for more, but you keep pushing that number up. And I think, and this is kind of what he was talking about, what he was trying to fight off here, is the perception that you poke the bear too much, and that bear is going to turn around and go into GameStop and get a used physical copy, right, or something like that, or they'll wait for a sale on Steam. And there's more sales on PlayStation now. PlayStation has like their 75% off sale.
Yeah, they have more sales more frequently. Yeah.
And I would also caution, and Zelnick sort of alluded to GTA 6, which looks like it may come out next year.
Yeah.
They alluded to it coming out next year. You can't. I don't think you can look at games like GTA 6 or Tears of the Kingdom as sort of a wider societal consent on we're fine with $70 games, because those games have such wide, huge markets. I honestly think you could price them at $90 and they're still going to sell a ton, right?
Well, not only that, but the $90 of people buying it will probably offset the $70 people who wouldn't buy it because the margin.
Because those games are massive, right? Yeah. Those games come around once every couple of years, as opposed to something like a smaller but popular game like, I don't know, Horizon Zero Dawn, the next Horizon.
Yeah,
that's going to be a big deal for us, but nowhere near on the level of a GTA 6 or or Tears of the Kingdom. So the context there changes because that market is not so big that I think it can't be affected by the $70 price point. The point I'm trying to get to here is GTA 6 is going to sell a lot no matter what because it's Grand Theft Auto. And if you point at that and say, see, people are fine with $70, I think that's somewhat false and disingenuous because GTA 6 is going to sell no matter what. Red Dead Redemption 3, if they make it, that'll sell no matter what because there's a bunch of people who are casual players who played Red Dead, played the second one, play the third one, but they don't play a lot of other games. Sports games are an interesting case. I think a lot of casual players will pick sports games up and not care, but that's another market where I wonder at what point is somebody just like, I'll just play last year's Madden. Why do I want to spend $70 on this year's Madden? I'll just play, but I don't have the numbers on that market. So yeah, he I think what he said here is technically correct. That they're not saying pushback, but it's not. But I would hesitate to call not saying pushback a critical consent of like, oh yeah, $70 is fine, because I don't think that's necessarily what's really going on. And again, like Tears of the Kingdom was going to sell no matter what. Because it's Zelda, so it has a way bigger market than something smaller that it's in something like Midnight Suns, which is going to struggle at a $70 price point.
Right.
So yeah, I think that's all I want to say about this.
I think the $70 price point is inevitable. I think over time, like they're pushing it now.
Yeah, it's basically standard almost.
Yeah, sure. But it's going to become the standard in probably a few years.
Yeah. I do wonder if there will be any sort of, because I keep hearing about an implosion of, I guess, a backpedaling of because of games cost so much to make and the rumored amount that GTA 6 is costing to make. I forgot what it was, but it was in the hundreds of millions.
It was very
high.
It was a lot.
I wonder if there is going to be sort of a more focus on not announcing your game and working on it until it's actually done and then releasing it, or just kind of making a smaller scale game to benefit a lower price point.
I think that's what the industry should do.
Well, yes. Yeah.
I think we need to go back to what was the term for it? Middle of the shelf games or whatever back in the day. Yeah. AA games, however you want to put it. Because right now they're like for Take-Two, there is so much writing on GTA 6. Well, it's such a massive investment, and Red Dead 2 Online did not work out because GTA 5.
It was their fault too.
Okay, it was a catch-22 because no one played Red Dead 2 Online because there was no support for Red Dead 2 Online.
Exactly.
There's no support for Red Dead 2 Online.
Snake.
It was the perfect catch-22 situation where both feels a system feedback loop.
Yeah.
And they could have fixed that by just supporting the online, and it would have corrected itself. But, they wanted to get as much money as they wanted out of GTA 5.
It's definitely tough. In 2 years from now, if I see like the newest Yakuza game for $70, I'm going to go, okay, yeah, sure, that's worth it. I know people get 30 plus, 50 plus hours on that. That's fine. But on the shelf right next to it, I see like the next Super Monkey Ball game for $70. It's going to be like, okay, well, that's a little weird because Super Monkey Ball is not, I'm not trying to be reductive. It's not like a copy paste type game, but you roll around a ball on like a maze thing. Sure. It's not like.
It's harder to imagine that has a budget that necessitates $70 price point to somehow. And it's the same thing with Tears of the Kingdom, right? Yeah. Tears of the Kingdom is obviously you get a ton in it.
Well, it's Super Monkey Ball. You get the little ball and you got to put it in the thing. God damn it! Gamers!
But in Tears of the Kingdom, it's like Tears of the Kingdom. It would have made a perfectly fine profit at $60. Probably would have made a perfectly fine profit at $30 with as many as they're going to sell. But they only bumped it up to 70 because they knew they could get away with it, right? And again, that's not consent. That's not consent to $70 price points being fined from the market. That's just the market's going to put up with that.
It's complacency.
But it will not even, maybe complacency. It's also just like people are just like, what? Oh, okay. When I went in and I got my copy of Tears of the Kingdom, there was a guy in there who was pre-ordering it at the other register. And he had he had the hazard vest and stuff.
The high-vis vest.
He walked I didn't see him, but I'm generalizing. He walked right off the job site and came in and pre-ordered Tears of the Kingdom, right? So this guy, he doesn't listen to us. He doesn't know what a Kotaku is. He's not on Twitter. He's not on YouTube. All he knows is when he's done doing his extremely hard work in the hot sun, putting together our roads and bridges, he's going to go play a video game at his house. Yeah. And he gets told by the clerk at GameStop, oh, it's $70. And he goes, oh, really? Okay. Like, he doesn't even think about that, right? Mm-hmm. So that's the market that you're dealing with, because it's a much more casual market. It was Joe Sixpack.
Little does Tyler know, that was our biggest fan. He's currently silently crying. As Tyler just tears him apart.
You want that pothole fixed in front of your house? Not anymore. Anyway, I think okay. I think are we done with this one?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh no, you know what? No, I'm not. Because you are correct. The games industry has to. I do think it's unsustainable. Because at some point, it's like you can't. At some point, there is going to be a bad Naughty Dog game, or there is going to be a really bad PlayStation exclusive, or there is going to be a bad Grand Theft Auto that is not going to sell well, right? Okay. So you put too many eggs in that basket, and eventually it's going to burst just through the laws of physics, because things cannot be good forever.
Right.
So when that happens. What's the financial fallout? And that's what you have to be careful of, and that's why the industry needs to figure out how to scale things down. But it's so complicated because, and I think, and this is partially why, like I joke executives are morons, but at the same time, I think it's also true. And Jason Schreier tweeted something out where he said, what executives will learn from Tears of the Kingdom, every game needs crafting. What they should learn, you don't need incredible visuals to make an incredible game. You know?
Yeah.
And again, a lot of the hardware that's pushing prices, or so we're told, is the super complex visual or super complex, super technical visuals, right? Yeah. You look at Tears of the Kingdom, doesn't look that great, but it's more about art direction than just straight up fidelity, right? Mm-hmm. So that needs to change. And we know that games can be successful without I said this in my video, game like The Outer Worlds. The Outer Worlds came out, or when it was announced, what was the company line on Outer Worlds? It's a 20-hour RPG. And was there complaints or was there jubilation? There was jubilation because people were like, oh, 20 hours? Hell yeah, I'm fine with that, right? You didn't hear, oh no, I need 80 more hours than that. people were fine with a 20-hour game, and it was dense, well written, it was good, it was fun. They're making a sequel, it was successful, right? So there are games that have bucked those trends that AAA executives think every game needs. Tons of side activities, go up the mountain, 130 hours of content. When it's like,
Climb this radio tower like every other game.
It's like just make a good game, it'll sell. These industry trends that you think every game needs, it's just because you're uncreative and you have a one-track mind. But anyway, okay, Connor, tell us about Overwatch 2.
Overwatch 2's PvE mode is dead. It's canceled. Sorry, guys.
Damn it.
Announced in a roadmap video, hero missions, a planned PvE mode for Overwatch 2, will no longer be made. This mode had unlockable hero abilities and more. Story missions, a different PvE mode, will still be released. This mode is a bit more linear. In a blog post, director Aaron Keller said, quote, "We struggled to find our footing with hero mission experience early on. Scope grew, we were trying to do many things at once, and we lost focus. The team built some really great things, but we were never really able to bring together all the elements needed to ship a polished, cohesive experience. We had an exciting but gargantuan vision, and we were continuously pulling resources away from the live game in an attempt to realize it. I can't help but look back at our original ambitions for Overwatch, feel like we used the slogan, crawl, walk, run, to continue the march forward with a strategy that just wasn't working. We had announced something audacious, our players had high expectations for it, but we no longer felt like we could deliver it. The Overwatch team understands this deeply. This represented years of work and emotional investment. They are wonderful and incredibly talented people and truly have a passion for our game and the work they do."
So it's difficult to speculate, but it's one of those things where, okay, it's like, speaking of Jason Schreier, you need to dig into this and tell us what went on, because what was the product that they scrapped and how bad was it going? And I think all that context would obviously provide all kinds of incredible light on what happened. I have not been following Overwatch 2. Apparently, I knew that it was going to have PvE, but I had no idea. Apparently, this is something people have really been looking forward to.
Yes.
And it's a big disappointment. You've played Overwatch 2.
The Overwatch 2 single player experience was presented like an actual story mode.
Yeah.
With levels. But don't get me wrong, the levels were just the levels of the game, but structured in a manner that you would progress through it like an actual story level. All of the characters would be talking to each other. We would get way more exposition. And of course, like was mentioned in the story, we would get upgradable skill trees to where characters would do like different things. Like one of the like most famous demos was like Mei would turn into her ice block, but if you pressed like R1 again, she would roll that ice block and crash into enemies.
Oh, okay.
And you wouldn't get that in the PvE or PvP. That would just be the PvE thing. But this was a chance for people who enjoy the characters of Overwatch and the story we have thus far of Overwatch in an actual progressive story that they have not given us for X amount of years because they've been too busy working on Overwatch 2, which is now for most people not actually Overwatch 2. It never has been. It's just Overwatch.
Yeah.
But with new microtransactions now.
The tempting narrative is that and I don't necessarily believe this, but I think this is the narrative that some people would like to believe, is that Heroes mode probably could have worked, but the resources required to keep a live service going demands that you can't do this on the side.
Right.
And that's sort of the similar thing we saw with Halo Infinite. Because Halo Infinite, seemed like we were going to get more story stuff. And in fact, we were going to get more story stuff in Halo Infinite. And then eventually they canceled that. And it seemed like it was because they were pivoting to focus on the live service stuff. And that disappoints people because the live service stuff is completely based around microtransactions. Right. So not only are you canceling sort of this other experience that people are looking forward to, but it's being canceled to service a microtransaction free-to-play economy.
Right.
So I think the narrative that people want to believe is this probably didn't need to happen if the context wasn't the free-to-play economy, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So they pin it on. Now, I don't know how true that is. And again, this is why we need a Jason Schreier, deep dive.
Right.
Because maybe it's developers were crunching for 2 months and there was scope. And he said there were scope changes. There were massive scope changes and it was confusing and people couldn't figure it out. So, and if it's that, then the context is a bit different, right? If the development was just hell, then it's like, okay, then,
The story mode was originally announced and delivered by Jeff Kaplan, who left soon after, which I assume that's probably why things started to fall apart.
And that's another part of the Blizzard narrative
Yes.
is in the past few years, you've had, now the past much longer than a few years, you've had the growing corporate sort of overtake of Activision, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what that's done to Blizzard. You had the big lawsuit over workplace culture. Bobby Kotick has become sort of a villain in the games. Well, he has been for a long time, but heightened since that lawsuit. Right. And you've had lots of talent leave Blizzard, whether it's different teams, the Overwatch team, Jeff Kaplan being one of the more notable ones. And Jeff Kaplan was sort of the first face of Overwatch when Overwatch came out. I think he was the first for a long time. He was like the guy speaking directly into the camera and stuff like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
I remember talking about the stuff he said on the show a while ago. But so I think another part of the narrative is, and I think I would believe this one without having like stone cold evidence, is that the people leaving Blizzard has probably attributed to this because of the turnover, because of the controversies that have happened the past few years, right?
Right.
So yeah, I don't want to. I'm disappointed because if it is, because maybe it is an economic reality, right? Maybe it is just reality that we have to focus on the live service aspect, whatever. But then the conversation is, but can we not do this in the future? Can we shift to a focus that is away from that live service to something more where you can do both things? I know that's simplistic, but is this the version of Overwatch that we want for the future, or in the future? Now, Bobby Kotick would say, fuck no, buy that $20 skin, right?
Yeah.
But is that the future that we want for Overwatch? Can we so even if it is an economic reality that they had to focus on the live service, is it economically possible to slowly phase sort of the priorities to the other side? Now, I'm speaking totally out of my ass because that's super complicated and I don't know the process behind it. But even though I don't know the process, I think that is the better future anyway. So I don't feel bad for saying, could you do this? Because I think most people would agree that's the future people would rather have. Does that all make sense?
Yes.
Yes? Okay, good. Because there's a lot of like dangling participles and stuff.
For sure. But yeah, no, it sucks that you're not getting that. I'm not the only thing I'm heartbroken over is the fact that I won't get more story more frequently, because now we're going to have to wait for single player events to happen in order to get these event stories like we did in Overwatch 1. I'm not sure if you played any of those in Overwatch 1, but they would have PvE events, but they mostly boiled down to keeping your ground, defending, and then characters would talk while you're doing that, but sometimes like the sounds overtake it's a whole thing. So
yeah, and I wrote the notes. Linear may not be necessarily the correct term, but the story missions seem much more limited in scope than the hero missions, where the hero mission sounded like a totally different game, like a single player game, as opposed to like this fun little side mode.
They had like opening cutscenes.
Yeah.
So it was actually,
that whole trailer where Tracer and Winston were in the street, wasn't that the trailer for
was the trailer for Overwatch 2. That was but the I could probably compare it mostly to Left 4 Dead. How Left 4 Dead story is structured.
Oh, okay.
So you would get an opening cutscene of the level, characters talking, you like entering the area, play the level while things are happening, get to the end, and so yeah.
And then in that you'd have your abilities and whatnot. Okay. Yes, Connor? Something to say.
I had something, but I can't remember it.
Well, let's do tidbits.
Video games.
What if I told you, in this world, there are bits, and there are tids, and Richard is the only man who can put them together into tidbits.
Got some quick bits here for you guys.
Hey!
Ooh, quick bits.
Grand Theft Auto 5 has passed 180 million copies sold.
Who hasn't bought... Have you guys not bought this game yet?
No, I bought it.
I have it on 360 and on PC, all right?
I bought it for 360,
me too.
played and beat it. And then I think I bought it for PS4, and I never played it.
Really?
Well, I played it initially to check out like its first person mode, and then I was actually very, very, very impressed and stunned at how clear things were, like in first person. And then I never played it again.
I would love to go back and play it again because I remember really enjoying that story mode, and the characters were obviously
it was a great
really
story mode,
interesting.
great world, great story. Yeah, it was great.
One of the best performances. His name is escaping me. Ott? Is it Stephen
Trevor,
Ott?
Stephen Ogg.
Stephen Ogg, of Trevor. Yep, one of the great video game performances.
And that's why we should get rid of the penny.
He's awesome.
Yeah, one of the best cutaways ever is you switch to Trevor, and it's got a guy tied up underneath a pier, and he goes, and that is why, in a nutshell, trickle down economics is total bullshit. And he goes walking away. Okay, what's the next one?
Red Dead Redemption 2 has sold over 53 million copies. So that's great. Good for them.
That's all right.
Tim Stamper, who is somewhat famous, he's been in the industry for a very long time. I believe he worked for Rare. Now he kind of, I actually don't know what he does, but he's the one who received the 12 Tales demo cartridge, dev cartridge. It had Conker's 12 Tales on it, and then he also was the one who got a missing Rare game before it turned into Banjo-Kazooie. It was like a pirate game.
Oh, whoa, okay.
He has gotten a hold of the Ocarina of Time Space World demo. So Space World was Nintendo's E3, like their own personal E3, like in the 90s, up until about 2003, I think, or 4, and then they stopped doing Space World.
Nice, okay.
They just stuck with. So Ocarina of Time, the Space World version, has different assets in the game and different scenarios that you can choose to play as.
Whoa.
It's been lost for so long that people have tried to recreate that demo or aspects of it in modified versions. And then the Giga leak from Nintendo a couple of years back, people found the assets from that and tried to create a more complete version. This is the actual demo from that demo.
Man, that's
from
so
that
awesome.
showcase. Only problem is,
oh no.
Well, if he tries to dump it, which he hasn't dumped any of the other ones, and people keep begging him to dump it, I mean, he possibly could face legal action. Yeah. Because he's still in the industry. He's still a big name in the industry. People know him. Obviously, it's going to come from him. So, easy target for him.
Oh, no. Someone broke into my car and stole it.
Right. The only thing I can think of is like, I sold it to somebody else or whatever. And then that gets dumped anonymously.
And if it's a Nintendo property, they have like assassins out there looking for little kids with cartridges of old Nintendo games. Okay, off the top of your head,
I'll do my best.
Because a level that I have always
it doesn't exist.
Always loved to play is the original trailer for Halo 2. Bet you can't
shit!
Which was not in the game,
right?
And I think
that was on the bridge, right?
The chief takes out a cannon that's not in the game, and of course there's the famous scene where the elites land around him, and he takes out a plasma grenade, and Cortana says, "Bet you can't stick it."
Yeah.
He goes, "You're on," and then he gets killed by an elite with a sword, because there's like 4 elites with swords that land. But that level is so awesome. It was New Mombasa, but
New Mombasa.
It's not in Halo 2. That's a level that I would absolutely love to. And I don't know if it exists. It may be something that exists and people have it out there like online or whatever. I don't know. But I remember watching that trailer and just being like, oh my god, I would love to play this level. But that was just off the top of your head. I didn't know. You don't have to.
I just looked. Back in 2022, Famous Halo 2 E3 demo will soon be playable thanks to 343 Industries.
Wait, really?
They recreated it, apparently.
Oh, so they recreated
in Master Chief Collection, yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, that's still cool. That's cool. That took some work. But I want to play the original one. 15 frames a second, running on hamster wheels.
I remember watching that, watching the whole demonstration, or the next demonstration, not the reveal, but the next demonstration. And I remember when they showed off on Zanzibar, on the beach, they showed off the homing rocket for the first time. And the crowd, because I watched it like someone recording on E3, the crowd went fucking ballistic. And it was, I mean, I was like, oh my God, cool. And it was awesome. Great times.
Yeah. Next tidbit.
Japan has made its very first arrest regarding gameplay showcasing through YouTube, if this makes sense.
Whoa, okay.
52-year-old from Nagoya, Japan is now the first country to be arrested for illegally uploading game videos on YouTube. The video game was Steins Gate, and the videos were also monetized and included the game's ending. So it was kind of double whammy. CODA, Japan's Content Overseas Distribution Promotion Organization, said that in principle, use of any gameplay videos requires permission from the rights holder. So he was making money off a game that he didn't have the rights to. So that was the first thing. The second thing is also had to do with spoiling, like the game's ending. There's also something regarding that in Japan. I had to dig into like a secondary article, figure it out, and I didn't write down the reasoning why, but it was
Everybody knows my opinion.
Yeah, and your opinion is I'm from Buenos Aires and I say kill them all.
Little difference.
Anyways, Circanas are next.
MPD's just
nah, man, it's disrespectful to
Matt's numbers.
Verbatim from Matt Piscatella. Circana numbers for the MPDs. Consumer spending on video game content, hardware, and accessories reached $4.1 billion, 5% drop when compared to a year ago. 6% decline in April spending on video game content offset the 7% growth in hardware. Year-to-date consumer spending on video game content, hardware, and accessories fell 2% when compared to the same period in 2022 to $17.7 billion. Spending on video game content declined 6% in April when compared to a year ago to $3.6 billion. All segments of the content spending fell year on year in April, except for non-mobile subscription content spending, which increased 2% versus April 2022. Star Wars Jedi Survivor is the best-selling premium game of April 2023. Instantly becoming the fourth best-selling game of 2023 year-to-date.
Won't stay there for long.
No. Title featured 2 days of sales in the April tracking month. I don't recall this doing the MPDs as long as I have, but now he's starting to state that they are premium games.
Okay, so that's what would define that then?
Paying for the game,
But is that what price point? $60, $70?
$70, I think.
70?
Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
Because next one, Dead Island 2 debuted as the second best-selling premium game of April 2023, ranking 6th in year-to-date dollar sales. 7 of the top 15 best-selling games of April 2023 were new releases.
Dead Island 2, $70?
It is $70.
See, that's one of those where it's like, come on. Okay, we have to talk about it. Continue. Sorry.
Okay, well, there were, as he said, 7 of the top 15 best-selling games in April were new releases. You want to take a stab at what they were?
In April?
In April.
Or best-selling games or new releases?
I just like to ask you. I know you guys aren't going to get it, but I'd like to.
No.
Jedi Survivor.
Yeah, that's one.
Dead Island 2.
Yeah. You're not going to get the other ones, probably.
The show, that was March, correct?
That was March, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Oh, Jesus. I don't know. Super Mario's Donkey Kong something.
Super Monkey Ball 38.
Close. The Super Mario 3D.
Was there a
World.
Pokemon game that
There was
came
not a
out?
Pokemon game, no.
Okay.
I'll take care of it. Don't worry.
I got two that you already said. So
surprising because I had no clue it released, but PGA Tour was number 7.
Oh, okay.
Number 8 was Mega Man Battle Network Legacy Collection. Number 11 was Minecraft Legends. Number 14 was the Final Fantasy 1 through 6 bundle, the Pixel Remasters is what they call. And number 15 was Advance Wars 1 and 2 Reboot Camp.
Okay. Yeah, you could have spotted me the C and the T, and I would not have guessed cat. So yeah.
That's all right.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys have heard of this Block guy who he wasn't not a member of the PGA, but he placed 10th this week in the PGA Championship,
Mm-hmm.
and he got like a $750,000 payoff, and he ended at like 1 over or something like that. But he's technically an amateur, right?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So it's cool because he placed with professionals. But
Yeah.
if you place at a high enough level, then you get automatically invited.
into the-
so
yeah.
he gets another invite to next
Very
year's
cool.
championship.
That's
So it's
awesome.
a big, like, cool, feel-good story. The guy was like 47 years old. He's worked
awesome.
at like a golf
Yeah.
shop or something all his life.
Yeah.
And he sunk the last hole, and he was paired with Rory McIlroy, who's
Yeah,
real
yeah,
famous. And he sunk the last hole, and the crowd was. It looked like he won.
Cool.
But people were like, he stuck in it, and he got +1, which +1's really good.
Yeah, it's very
plus
good.
one's
Very
not
good.
bad at all. So it was a cool feel-good story
Yeah,
about golf.
that definitely.
this weekend,
That's
yeah.
awesome.
Anyway.
Yeah, let's move on. Video game hardware spending grew 7% compared to year average to $367 million. Is that right? That doesn't sound right. This is the highest video game hardware spend for an April month since $420 million reached in April of 2020. That's when people were buying.
Or 20.
Yeah, nice.
Nice.
Nice. Year-to-date hardware spending is now 18% higher when compared to the same period in 2022 at $1.8 billion. That's because consoles cost more. PlayStation 5 is the best-selling hardware platform in dollar sales during April, while Switch led the market in units sold. PS5 leads the hardware market year-to-date across units and dollars. And accessories during April was flat when compared to a year ago, $158 million. Dual Sense Edge wireless controller Black was the best-selling accessory, and I'll tell you why, because those things keep fucking breaking. Both April and 2022 year-to-date. It's either the battery or drifting, 1 and 2.
So
That's it for Circana, by the way.
So as soon as we get next month's numbers, which will be this month's numbers,
Yeah.
Tears of the Kingdom is just going to annihilate everything.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, I would love to see it annihilate more if they gave us the digital.
Yeah.
Numbers.
So once that happens, I think for the rest of the year we're not going to see anything
You have
close to it.
so last week. Wait, Tears of the King came out last week, right? Week and a half ago.
Week before. It came out Friday, the Friday before last Friday. Yeah.
That week, consistent calls for Switches. Consistent calls for people wanting Switches.
Wow. Interesting. Okay.
And then I even had a guy come in who bought a Switch from us, and his joystick was drifting. I fixed it for him. He was like, "Yeah, I actually don't really play video games, man." He's like, Zelda came out and wanted to play it to like connect to my younger brother who's also playing it, and I was like, that's really cool. But like, he played Zelda when he was a kid. That's like the one constant people remember certain series. So yeah, he went out, bought a Switch, and bought Zelda just to play Zelda. Like, and so it's just wild how these franchises will have like a particular grip on people.
Yep.
It's very cool and very interesting.
In 3 days, Tears of the Kingdom sold 10 million.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah, it's gonna be gonna be insane. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at the Gaming Discourse. Check out the Gaming Discourse FM, new show Wednesday. Go to our YouTube channel, check out my latest video, Cosmetics Are Gameplay. I'm gonna rock your body until the break of dawn. No, Cosmetics Are Gameplay and Why Live Service Economies Suck in General. And we will see you next week.
Bye.
Bye bye.